本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
What's good, Internet? Welcome to episode 547 of Waypoint Radio. I am your host, Patrick Klepek. Rob, out here just asking permission from the internet if it's okay for him to spend a lot of money on a television that can be curved and straight at the same time. Rob, just follow your heart, you know? What is your guide? Can you turn that TV into a guiding key?
No.
I don't know. No, probably.
Absolutely
That's the next
not.
evolution. Is we have flip phones, curved TVs, but eventually one will turn into a key itself to unlock the answers to these questions and many more in a question bucket heavy episode of Waypoint Radio. I'm joined by one Renata Price.
I don't know about ye, but I'm feeling 23.
Wow. Happy birthday, Ren. Belated.
Thank you.
But happy
Thank
birthday.
you.
I don't know if I want to say happy birthday after
No,
that
you have
drop.
to. Thank you.
you have to.
Well, I don't know.
She's
This
a little
voice
birthday
and-
girl.
No, you have to.
I knew you were a big Taylor Swift fan. I just, you know,
I'm not.
just-
I
I'm
actually-
aware.
sorry.
When I mentioned that, I was fairly sure that's where we were going to end up. She needs to get a new producer. Come on, get that guy the fuck out of here. All of her songs sound exactly the same now.
I've never listened to one of her albums, like in full. Actually, that's not true. I listened to the most recent one like once or twice through, and I was like, yeah, I get why people like this.
Oh god, it's so samey. Don't get me started on pop music. But her produce like Red's a good album. Back on like her country pop roots. It's I don't know. I like Taylor Swift. Did you have a good birthday? No, you didn't. You lost your phone. But did you have a good birthday?
My birthday was my birthday was probably the happiest. Like, not to be corny. For reasons
I love to be corn. Like I am a dad. Like I am filled with corn. I'm bursting at the seams. Please be corny. Tell me about your happiness.
My birthday was one of the
Filled with
happiest days of
corn.
my life. I mean
Alright.
I mean that genuinely. I woke up. I had a lovely day. I got brunch with my girlfriend. That was delicious. We went to a French place. We went to a different French place for brunch the next day too.
Wow.
That's right.
Was
That's
that
right.
planned?
Double
I
brunch.
got two brunches in a row.
That's
Yeah.
fucking wild.
That's a lot. That's a lot of brunches.
I'm living in a lap of luxury, motherfucker.
Wow.
I had a delicious hibiscus cur that I got for free because the bartender thinks I'm pretty. So that was part one, and then we went to an event at the Brooklyn Museum, which was very cute.
Oh, you were in my side of
there was-
town.
Yeah, I walked past Branded Saloon, the gay bar.
The gay bar, yeah.
Yeah.
That place is
I got
great.
dinner there after the.
They make a good boiga. I like
They
their
do
burgers.
well. They're all right. Welcome to Cado and I's New York Minute. They're
Well, we're gonna need a drop for that. We need a drop for the Destiny,
Destiny
minute
second,
and
yeah.
the New York minute.
New York
if you
minute.
have any jingle, if you are listening to
Hey,
Waypoint Radio
I'm
and good at writing
talking
jingles,
over here.
okay, now take that,
Yeah.
isolate that audio, put a little music under it, and like some reverb or something. I don't know. You're the
Yeah, I
artiste.
got this,
Figure it out. Yeah, please. All right, continue.
Listen, I don't think their Beyond Burger does not fuck, but do you know what does, Cado?
Hmm.
You know what goes preposterous?
What?
They're fried pickles.
Oh, fuck yes. I love their fried
Yeah.
pickles. They're so fucking
Yeah.
good.
That's just beer bat. Patrick, what's your favorite? Like, do you fuck with fried pickles?
I don't mind them in terms of the fried food spectrum. Like I have such a soft spot for mozzarella sticks. Like a really good. Like I'll eat a crummy. Like I'll eat the bottom of the barrel. Like just like whatever. But like a good mozzarella stick with really good marinade. Like I had some on Friday from a place I hadn't eaten it before. Some neighbors ordered from it. It was just like, my God, revelatory. But I'm not like obsessed with fried food. I don't need like a Snicker bar deep fried, but I do enjoy the wide options of various vegetables and things like that are fried in different ways. So, but a mozzarella stick is definitely the one if I had to pick one out of a bucket.
The mozzarella stick is, I think, the peak of the fried food form. Although I will say this, I love a fried pickle very deeply, but like Some of those shits can be real crispy, real crunchy. You know what I mean?
That's the nature of the, you know, like fried is not a binary. like that is what you eat enough mozzarella sticks and you figure out you can fuck it up. You can it's still full of cheese. So you're like, at the end of the day, once you're inside there, like the mozzarella stick is still delivering, but that is the nature of the fried food is you discover over time that like there are masters of the craft.
But like these were like beer battered, so it's like that like really thick breading around like delicious, fucking excellent.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, the event at the Brooklyn Museum was really good. We went to their first Saturdays thing, which I believe is free, and so basically the museum is like all the exhibits and shit is free for the day. We're like from 5 to 11, and then they also do like events. Like there was like a big dance thing happening there, which was way too loud for me. But there was also like a stand-up show for Women's History Month. And
Wait, what?
In the museum?
Yeah, at the museum there's a stand-up show. What's up,
for Women's History
For
like
Women's History Month.
Is it the jokes themed?
The performers were. It was a
Okay.
non-binary person, a woman whose jokes did not land, and this like one like lesbian comic who is like pretty popular on TikTok. And that was, I'll be honest, it was a bit dark. Like we went to it. My girlfriend likes comedy, and we went to that, and it was the vibes were bad.
I think once in my life, I love going to live comedy as well, but I think only once in my life have I gone to like the similar, like it's a little more of like, you know, an open mic situation. I'm sure if you are interested in the craft, you can appreciate people who are working through it. I simply cannot and must pay for people who have gotten good.
Let me be clear. This was not like people who are not like, these are people who get booked. Right.
Oh,
These are
okay.
like, this was not like some randos off the street. This was
All
like,
right.
these are people who like have careers in comedy. But let's just say, hey, folks in the audience, if you're considering doing stand-up comedy and you're a queer person, you know what you don't need to do? Don't need to make jokes about worried about getting canceled. You don't have to do it. It's played out. I heard like 3 or 4 people joke about getting canceled on Saturday. You don't need to do it. You don't need to post your L's like that. Like truly, if you're that gay, and some of these bitches were really gay, you don't post your own L's, please. I'm begging you. But yeah,
Is it a lot of comedy though, posting your own L's and unpacking
there was
I feel like that is fundamental to the nature of the comedic structure. Is I'm a big L and I'm gonna make you laugh about it.
Yeah.
I think it depends. I think that like there is a certain degree. The problem that I'm hitting on is that everybody's joking about the same L's. Like everyone's posting the same L's over and over again. I don't go to therapy. Cool L you posted. Literally 3 other people at this one show were doing that bit. Where it's not simply find different L's to post. But yeah. That was Ren's cool birthday weekend. My girlfriend made a card for me that is the cutest shit I've ever seen. It is my favorite object now. I'm very happy about it.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
And that has been Ren's Birthday Minute, brought to you by, what was the bar?
Branded Saloon.
Brandon Saloon.
I didn't pay anything, but they got an advertisement. Anyway, that one you cannot wave away by going to waypointplus.com and subscribing. That one is just
we're embedding
in
the ads now.
Yeah, well, look, charge a little more for that. To get into the show, there was another episode of the penultimate. Hey, that's a word that for a long time I did not understand. And then when it was explained to me, I was just so thankful. When we went through that phase of answering questions where people used words wrong, I'm so thankful I never deployed that, because I don't know what I thought it meant, but I definitely did not know what it meant. And then when finally it was like used in the correct context of second to last, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can use that word now. we are near the season finale of the Last of Us television show. The finale airs next Sunday. My wife has big plans to watch the Oscars, and now I'm going to have to somehow watch that and watch this because HBO moved up the episode for the Super Bowl, but is not moving it. Is a big middle finger to the Oscars. They don't care about you. We think more people will watch our show. They're probably right. That is probably the strategic decision to make.
You could probably start watching the Oscars, take a little Last of Us break in the middle, and still get back before they do Best Picture.
That's true. And I actually have access to the final episode of The Last of Us, but
wow.
The water, it's not a brag.
Fancy.
The watermarking is intense. It's there.
Patrick.
It is. It's just my name plastered all over it. And it's like, I would like to be emotionally invested in this show. Well, would you like to read your name in big 48 impact font? So it's very weird to be like, I could watch that. I could solve this problem, but do you want to have a bad time doing it? And I was like, no, I don't. So I will try to figure that out. But the most recent episode, it takes place during the sequence from the game in which, spoilers for the show. Also, I guess we caught a couple people off guard. I saw some comments in our last discussion about the episode prior where we kind of discussed moments from The Last of Us Part 2. Let's just, for the sake of this discussion, like, all Last of Us is on the table. If we talk about Part 2, it'll bleed into here. I apologize if that means you're watching it for the first time and don't want to know bits that are happening in the second one, but I also would rather just be more careful. Because I know that we caught a couple people with the big thing that happens in Part 2, and that stinks. So just know that going in. We're not going to intentionally try and just spoil stuff for the sake of it, but I just want folks to be aware. But this sequence takes place where Joel has become injured while Joel and Ellie were on their way to essentially deliver Ellie to these medical professionals who could, in theory, turn her into a magic vaccine. And, then everything will just get better. That doesn't happen. Joel gets hurt. Ellie finds herself in the middle of winter looking for some way to save Joel. And this is the sequence in the game where you take control of Ellie. It's like a really emotional moment in the game where the game never signals that you're going to have a chance to play as her. And the fact that you do is really neat from the player's perspective, where she has been this companion character for a number of hours in the game. And now suddenly she is the one that is going around, and I believe has access to primarily a bow and arrow. And I love me a bow and arrow in a video game. And so this episode adapts this moment where they come across a town with sort of a religious, like a preacher character at the heart of it. It is revealed that Cado, that they're cannibals, willing or unwilling, depends on who you are in this little community. And Ellie, in pursuit of trying to get Joel some medicine, trying to procure themselves some supplies so they can continue their journey, kind of gets wrapped up in this pretty fucked up little community. Ren, you watched the episode. What did you make of this one?
This one was probably the toughest episode for me to watch, just in terms of content. There was some pretty grim shit in terms of the thing that I want to note here is that pedophilic cannibals, not great to have a lot of time with them on screen. Makes me feel bad to watch a man attempt to groom a child. Feels pretty bad. And in that way, they did an effective job of making me feel really gross. But other than that, I don't know. I think it was a fine constructed episode. It continues the trend that you Rob and I've been talking about in terms of Ellie's particular relationship to violence. Extends it out a little bit further.
There's the sequence that takes place kind of in the makeshift jail cell in which the preacher character essentially says I have violence within me that was unleashed as a result of the cordyceps, and now I'm allowed to do this. I see that in you. Those lines aren't in the game, and I do think that is, as we were talking about previously, laying this groundwork for like, hey, we're kind of doing some light retcon to this character to make them make sense to the audience. I think there's, the second season of the show will come out, I don't know, 18 months from now. Like the gap between playing that first game and the second game, like there's a cognitive distance where you can kind of hand wave a bit on a character because you just have distance between them, emotion, like over the span of time. I think here that is not going to be the case, and so you have to kind of do that work to make that tonal whiplash feel less of a whiplash when the second season comes around. I'm with you. It condenses a lot of gross stuff into a very small period of time. I do think this is more than any other episode in the season so far where I am not someone who thinks like more is more. I'm actually like, I don't like in the streaming area, the streaming era in which like everything is super long. Like every episode has to be an hour. Every episode is a movie, and it just seems like things never end. I have liked the kind of quick pace, the efficiency of the storytelling in this adaptation, and yet I really think this should have been 2 episodes. I think because they condense everything that happens here, which is a pretty protracted sequence in the game itself, more and more, it almost feels like I'm watching levels of a video game in this television show where it's like, all right, Joel and Ellie survived that level. Now they go to the next one. And what I really enjoyed, I think some of the strongest work in the season is what happens when they go to Kansas City. And it's because you get an episode where not much happens. It's actually just them just slowing down, giving these characters some moments. You have the car sequence in which, Joel like shows a level of violence we have not seen from the character quite yet. But also Ellie gets a chance to like react to that. I mean, like there's not a lot of plot progression, but there's a lot of dominoes setting up for that second episode that takes place in that same location that you can see how they would have done that in one episode, but it would have been much lesser. We would have gotten no character work from the character of Kathleen. Like we've gotten way less with the 2 brothers. And I think desperately this episode needed more of that.
I mean, it seems like they wanted to do that with Left Behind, right? Left Behind and this episode were designed to be a pair in the same way that the second Kansas City episode and the like meeting Tommy episode were designed to be like, if those 2 episodes are like about a kind of relationship, and like Joel's particular like relationship to Ellie, then then these episodes are a pair. I just think that this pair doesn't work as well because Left Behind. I think that Left Behind would have worked a little bit better if it spent more time using what like TV can do that the games couldn't, which is like constantly be intercutting, right? Like it is intercutting. There's a framing device being used, but I would have much more rather like if the episode on Left Behind had been like 60% Left Behind, 40% Winter, or like 50-50, I think that would have like led to this landing a little bit harder for me. I
just wanted more time in the little community, right? Like we have to, I mentioned before that I'm watching this with my wife, and so it's always interesting to see what she thinks of an episode and she like we are 5 minutes into the episode, and she's like, oh, they're cannibals. And I was like, and she like is looking at me for some sort of confirmation, and I said, like, it's been too long. I actually cannot give you an indication one way or the other. I was like, but there are bad vibes, and I'm with you. I think that is kind of a trope of these types of stories. Like, I would not be shocked if that's actually what happened. And I just think we had to rush to all of that. Like the turn with the preacher has to happen too fast. It's not that it doesn't work and every performer is like giving their all. I just think there is so much space for more of this for Joel and Ellie to have more time on her own, figuring things out, getting involved in this community. Everything just has to like go. And it's all, done exceptionally well and it looks gorgeous, but I just wish it was twice. I would do this as an instance where I wish it was twice as long to just allow all that to breathe a little bit more. Because we basically get no insight into the community. It's like, look at these dopes getting fed bodies, and look at this mean preacher, and it all ends up making it a little too one note in a way that I would have appreciated given a little more. Like Kathleen, we don't spend a ton of time with her,
Yeah.
but she is not a one-note character. You get a sense of why she does what she does, and it makes all the scenes with her after, even if she's written off the show pretty quickly, much more effective. And here, it's like, here's a little bit of a mustache-twirling villain who has character traits and desires that are of the most abhorrent variety, but it is still kind of a mustache-twirling villain. And at the end of the day, I think it would have benefited from giving that a little more space.
See, I almost wonder if like I don't know if giving more time with that group of people would be particularly like enjoyable for me personally, because like I don't want to spend any more time with that fucking character. I don't want him on screen. I do not want to interact with him. It feels bad. But I do think that like the episode, in terms of like immediately picking up on the fact that they're cannibals, like again, this is like, it's a really technically well-made show. Right, like the way that like the camera lingers on the food immediately tells you something is wrong.
Yeah,
and like
the way they are like slopping the food into their mouth is just like, this is not how you shoot food if you want to feel good about. Like we've talked, people have asked over the years, like, hey, you all, like people like Rob and Cado like talk about food all the time. Like it'd be cool if you all did something, at the Vice offices, and it's like, yeah. One, that's difficult to set up just from a logistical standpoint. Like, how do you make two sets interact? But two, like, it's really easy to make food look bad, even if you're making it well. Like, just lighting it, shooting it is difficult. Here, to your point, Ren, like, this is shot well, lit well, but in a way that is meant to make you feel upset as soon as they start eating.
Well, also, like, just like when they're just bringing it out to cook it, right? The way the meat is cut is like framed in this like. It's the fact that it's cubed, right? It is cubed in such a particular way that is like, wait a minute. Hey, I don't think you need to do all that. I think you could have had a steak and it would have been normal. Why'd you do that? Hey, why'd you make that meat that shape? What's going
just
on here?
Just a delightful little meat cube
I don't know
for me and my friends.
I don't know if I trust the meat cube. I do think that the this episode is, I think, also like has the most upsetting acts of violence that we've seen in the series by like a pretty in the show by like a pretty significant margin. There is a scene where Joel tortures someone where like I had to not watch. I had to like, I could hear it, but I was like, I don't want to see a man have his kneecap threatened to be popped off. Like I can't.
I think that's what they're going for, right? I think
can't
that
deal with this.
The extreme nature of that sequence where Joel essentially snaps in pursuit of, he gets the information he wants from these people. He knows that he has acquired it, and there's a way to play that scene for Joel as an individual to look. Should you trust these people even after you've gotten the information? Probably not. Like, not a lot of evidence here that they can be trusted to live and not just track you down and take you out. But it is the viciousness that frankly, the delight that he takes in being extremely good at hurting people, extremely good at enacting this level of just really depraved violence. He doesn't smile, but he's effective. If you ever watch the television show 24, right? Like that scene is just, Kiefer Sutherland, like the tick tock 20, show from about 15 years ago. Like right. That show had tons of, made for television level of violence, torture sequences, like born out of like the Bush era. Like there's a lot of problematic parts of 24, but he was always like cracking arms or cracking fingers, so that's all they could show on Fox at 7:00 on a Thursday. Here it's the same sort of stuff, but cranked up to a almost pornographic degree of violence, in which you are. I think the what's happening there is, I watched it because I've watched too many horror films that it takes a whole lot to get to me. But I think for the average person who is a little less unhinged to on-screen violence, they want you to look away. It is meant for you to look at this and go, like, there's not. I don't need to witness this to get the effectiveness of the scene.
Yeah, I also want to be like, I have a pretty good stomach for like filmed violence, but it is the particular like approach that Joel takes to it that made me like wildly uncomfortable while watching that scene. Like a small detail that was like Joel stabs a guy to death and then leaves the knife in so he can beat his friend to death with a bar, which is just like, you don't have to do this.
No.
Like you have a better way to do both of these actions, and you are choosing the worst possible way to do it both times.
And yet what's kind of interesting, because I was talking about the show with some people over the weekend who are only passingly familiar with the game, and the violence that occurs with Joel against the two people he's sort of like kidnapped and torturing is essentially the base level of violence that occurs every couple of minutes in the game, right? Like, so when Joel takes like, you know, swings away at the head of this person, like you do that a couple hundred times, like, you know, in the game through its like many different death animations.
Right.
Like someone, I don't know how I came across it, but it was a clip of the most extreme violence in The Last of Us Part 2. Just like, and it's the everyday stuff. We're like, hey, this is just a random group of soldiers or whatever that you're fighting, and you just shot one in the face, and like the level of specificity they have and the way the eye disappears. Right. You just sort of forget that like one of the things this show is doing is limiting these sections to make them more effective, because it's what you have to do in a television show. But also, it's like, okay, like this is just the baseline for a room in The Last of Us, and they extract a lot more out of it by limiting it in the television show.
It's limiting it, but also it's like it is truly the power of like the camera in a lot of these situations where like the camera is doing things that like the in-game camera can't. Like when you take out again, I've been playing The Last of Us 2 kind of concurrently with watching this show, and like when, for example, Ellie takes out like an infected, right? The animation is pretty graphic in that like one stabs in the neck and then like pulls the knife out the other way. So like the whole situation is just obliterated. We're talking about like complete devastation to the tracheal section, right? That hole is gone. And like that is upsetting. It is an upsetting animation, and it is like a pretty grim piece of violence. But the camera can only do so much. Because like it is at a set distance away from the character, or is at a set distance that can move in a little bit for like cinematic framing, but otherwise the camera is still in like the player's hands. Same thing with like, you know, a melee attack, right? Like does Joel hit a motherfucker in the head with a pipe in the game? Yes, 100%. But if you think about the way the camera moves alongside that attack, it is like, it is active and like has momentum to it, to me, in a way that like the scene that was the torture scene does not, right? The pacing of that scene and the ways in which like the camera sits at a remove so you can see the context of the violence happening.
It's almost like you're watching it from the, like as a viewer, the camera shot is frequently feels like you're peering in from around a corner.
Right.
Like there's a voyeuristic quality to how it's shot.
Right. And like, I think that like this is, again, I think this is a really competently made television show. I think that like it is technically phenomenal on a writing level for the most part. I do have some issues with Left Behind and the fact that, oh boy, those are teenage girls written by adult men. Oh boy. But other than that, right, it is like a pretty competently written thing. And those like technical qualities I think are really excellent. Like the, you know, this goes to show like it is a really well-made show, even though I think it like, it's not, am I ever going to watch The Last of Us TV show again? No, never. Once I finish this show, I'm memory holding this, like truly. But yeah, I think it is like a well-made episode that made me viscerally uncomfortable. And I have yet to determine whether or not I think it earned that visceral uncomfortability.
Yeah. And in that sequence in particular, I think when you film a thing that you can, it's just like cuts, right? Like you don't see the Joel swing and watch that man's skull shatter. What I do in the game is watch that happen over and over and over again. And the effectiveness of being able to cut away as opposed to showing the violence there. And it's not like it's a show that's afraid to show violence. You know, I mean, like when Troy Baker gets got, you know, by with
God. Troy Baker gets fucking obliterated. I was actually very
really
funny.
He gets really got.
I was with my girlfriend when Troy Baker shows up on screen, and we were both like, is that Troy fucking Baker? And then at one point he says a line which is like, I'll go after her. And when he says I'll go after her, he's doing the fucking Joel voice. He's doing the Joel voice. He's actively doing the in-game Joel voice. And we were both like, oh my God, he's doing the fucking Joel voice. That's embarrassing. Like, you know what? Good for him. That's a good reference, but also like,
Must have been surreal though. Like
yeah.
I mean, like being an actor on that set, you know, in like it's too bad they couldn't find some way to con or sort of like get the two of them in a scene together just for the complete weirdness of it. And I'm glad they didn't do an Easter egg like that just to force the Easter egg. But I was wondering if at some point they would find some way to do that. I did really enjoy when Ellie and Joel are reunited at the end, like in the same way that Joel, the way he called out to Tommy when he gets to Jackson. I found that sequence between, again, those characters are at their best when those two actors are around one another, and like that little embrace that the two of them have when you know, Joel fully lets his emotional guard down and calls Ellie the same way that he calls his daughter, you know, baby girl, was like, oh, she's full of blood and almost got raped, but I guess this is very touching for these two characters.
Yeah.
So, the finale is this weekend. I'm hoping to watch it in between Oscar stuff, and we'll swing back around to see how this season wraps up. Cado, are you the king of the castle, or are you not? Are you the king?
No, I wasn't the king either of these times.
You weren't the king.
I weren't the king.
What is King of the Castle? A game that you are privately pitching for all of us to play because it has some Twitch integration that I know that is notable. Explain to me what this game is.
So King of the Castle is a party game in the vein of the sort of Jackbox style, where you only need kind of one person to own the game, and everybody else is logging in on their phones or a browser or whatever in order to interact with the game. But it essentially runs like one person is the king and everybody else is nobles that get sorted into one of three different noble houses, and it's basically a party Game of Thrones that is really, really well written and scripted. It has really fun characters in it, really fun events happening in them. For example, one thing that always happens at the beginning, so this isn't light spoiler, I guess, if you don't want to like learn about events that happen in this game, but the first one of them's like you're setting up your coronation, and it's one of the earliest things that happen. The way that the game is structured is like the interaction happens in these moments where everyone votes for a thing, and as the monarch, you actually don't vote, only the nobles vote. You have veto power on one of, there's usually multiple choices. So you can veto one of them. You can be like, that one just ain't gonna happen. Or you can be like, I like that one the most. just to hope that the people who you're playing with are gonna be like, okay, sure, I'll go along with what the king says and try to curry the favor of the king.
Like, so I'm looking through the trailer for this, and so what kind of coronation should be held for the king? And then 4 options. We have host a lavish parade with jugglers and fountains of wine. Proceed with a religious ceremony that honors the 9th god. Throw the king into the river.
Throw the king into the river!
Oh, I can't read this last one. Troops shall bear the king through the streets atop a shield. And then, you have the different, people voting for it. There's like shows like stability up, like treasury down, faith up,
right,
authority down. What is the scale of one of these games? Is this like an hour? Like how long is one playing out for enough of these like thing up thing? Like I'm curious, like,
so here's the
how
thing
these variables even come into play.
So here's the thing that is ultimately really great about this game is that it it can take a while depending on how quickly you like move through things. I had one game go as quick as like an hour and a half, and last night I played over at friend of the site, Austin Walker's friends at the table, did a whole stream of this with their Twitch chat, and that went fucking 5 hours because that's who they are.
That adds up. Is that because it's a lot of let's talk about this particular decision for 45 minutes and do essentially record an entire podcast,
right?
Discussing it.
Like a lot of, obviously they were all doing their own voices for every single character and like getting really into it. So like you can like you can go the slow route and it'll take a while, but it's still fun. Or you can go, if you're, the other way I played this game was in a group of like 16 people in a Discord call. And like people were still kind of discussing things, but there's an inherent quickness to once the vote starts. And, but basically, let me rewind real quick. There's objectives that everyone's trying to do. The king has the objective of, getting an heir, assigning an heir, and doing one ambitious like task to like be remembered by. And if the king can do that, the king wins. All of the nobles have individual schemes. Like each individual faction has their own scheme, and the schemes are chosen by the nobles themselves. Like that's the first thing that the nobles vote on is like, okay, what is our scheme to overthrow the king and let us install our own king?
And this is not hidden, right? Like,
no.
Like what other layers of, like sometimes with these party games, like,
right.
You know, you have specific information that is not being shared. This is more everything's on the table and everyone's negotiating in the open to
100%. Okay. Everyone always has all the information of what everyone's trying to do, right?
All right.
And then there's basically a bunch of stats for everyone. The kingdom has 3 big stats, which are stability, authority, and treasury, just money basically. And if any of those ever hit 0, they automatically lose. There's basically like a round where like 3 events happen, and that's like the end of a season. Every season, like, after all the like events happen, you basically check like, okay, have you completed the thing that your scheme is trying to do for each of the noble classes? So like these small numbers of like, okay, this is going to bring stability up. By how much depends on what the event is and stuff. But a lot of times it's like, it's going to take a little bit for those schemes to like really get rolling. And what's great is that the events, I've played this twice now, and both times we've gotten like different events to happen, but the events are very obviously tailored towards the type of schemes that everyone is doing in a way where even though it seems like, even though it seems random, it like what? Like there's like 6 different factions you could be. Only 3 of them get picked for a game. Of those 3, each of those have 3 options for their schemes. So that's like more than 9 different combinations of what any one game could look like at a given time. And yet they have events that feel tailor-made for like, oh, these people are trying to buy up all the roads, and these people are trying to possess. I mean, they're not vampires, but they're trying to possess the king.
My actions that are similar to a vampire are prompting a lot of questions about whether I'm a vampire.
My weird, spooky counts that all carry skulls around and have.
I'm not a vampire.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
These fangs, no, this is the style.
Yeah, this
right
is just
now.
like, you know, I had that filed in. It's cool. But that's the big thing with this game is that a lot of the writing and stuff is really fun. There's like a lot of like even just like that example of like there's an option to throw the king in the river at the coronation, right? Which obviously, especially playing in like the Twitch context, often gets chosen. Which is
so wait,
great.
so yeah, what is the maybe it's just not fully clear to me yet. What is the Twitch audience doing in concert with the individual players that like as non-king characters are doing?
Basically, they just become nobles. When you play this on Twitch, they are who make up the nobility. They're the people voting on these different decrees and stuff. And
so we as the players are picking like our options, and then the chat is sort of is guiding
the
from
vote,
those
yeah.
options. Okay.
Yeah. So like for example, the way I'd imagine us playing it is like we gotta have King Rob up here, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like no other way.
Yeah.
Everyone must have TVs that curve and then also go flat. What are we doing?
And then each of us would pick our own faction, and then we would kind of like voice our like, this is what I think we should do as a faction. But ultimately, the chat will be able to decide for themselves what happens, right? And so that's where the kind of that sort of which even happens. So like that dynamic of like people saying like, this is where I think we should go as like all of our nobles, we should go this way. That happens at both scales in really interesting ways. Like the Twitch chat one is obviously like a kind of audience, streamer situation that sometimes they'll listen to you, sometimes they won't. But even in like a smaller situation where there's only like, we had like 16-ish people, I think, people would like start discussing things, but there's like a 30-second timer on the votes once they pop up, and then you don't really get any preamble to this. So you have people are flinging like suggestions quickly. Once you vote, you're locked in, you can't swap. So people hold their votes usually until like deliberations have happened, and sometimes there'll be a group of people that just decide to say one thing and vote another way because they think it's the right way, and they've just like actually have had a second Discord chat going on the side while they're hiding what ways they're gonna vote. And so like, just that sort of like, it allows for like these specific social interactions that are really fun, and like the stakes never feel like there can be moments in like social deduction games where, depending on the type of person you are, you might feel like bad lying to too many people, or like having to lie to like you, or you just can't do it. And this one feels like, because ultimately everyone's doing the same action at the end of voting, it like it diffuses some of that tension of being being sneaky, even though you can be sneaky, and maybe that's a way to win.
But also it's more really it's more just straight social as opposed to the thing that sometimes gets in like when we've done like some of these games like on various streams, it's like I have trouble keeping all of the the actual game mechanics in my head while also doing the social layer. And so here it's way fewer things you're accounting for other than just the persuasion layer.
It always leaves up the stats too. Like it's never like you have to you're
not doing any math.
Yeah, you're never like how much we were at like X farming, right? Like we were like 5 farming, and we need to get our farming up to 7 or something by the end of 3 seasons. So like how quickly can we do that? Like which scheme of these is gonna help us? And for most things, it kind of depends. Obviously, like there's some events that are just the nobles that are like in that country vote, and some of them are like kingdom-wide votes, and those kingdom-wide votes can obviously help and hurt other people. And so like you get it does this thing where you become it, even though if all of the nobles focused together, they could definitely overthrow the king. But the king has ways, and the ways of moving votes, that will actually end up pitting the nobles against each other, and it almost feels inevitable that they won't ever rebel as a group, because each one has their own individual like goalpost that they want to hit so they can put one of their people in as king. And it's just it's really tightly and really well balanced around, like it never feels like anyone has the upper hand, like fully has the upper hand until the end. Like, and then someone suddenly is hitting the last part of their scheme, and you're like, oh shit, you're what? Like they're about to win next round, and like people try to scramble and see if there's any way to delay it. But like just yeah, a lot of really fun interactions with the way that they narrativize all these events that seem like just really smartly put together. I didn't see. I saw only a few repeats in the 2 times I played it, and even then, there were certain parts of that. It was like the same event, but it takes into account the state of the game in a different way. Like they've got a lot of kind of interspersed, like, oh, we know that they're doing this scheme, so we'll make mention of it in this way for this event, even if this event gets reused. That was really, really neat. Also, the soundtrack is a banger. And yeah, I love you can make your own little noble. The art is really great. Seems like it's a really fun party game that, I mean, it costs $5 too. Like, it's just,
that seems like a steal.
It's a steal for how much I feel like this could be really fun to just play with a group of 5 to 10 friends. Even like, it doesn't have to be a full, like, we've got 20 people in this call situation, or like we're playing with a Twitch chat of like hundreds and hundreds of people. That's the big thing, is like, it's surprising how well it works across those 2 different scales.
I like that when I pulled this up on Steam, it said, similar to games you've played, Long Live the Queen, which I believe was a game we played on stream at some point, in which we forced a lot of people to do voices for it, which always means Danica was involved.
Yes.
And I think that was the case. I think this is the one where we made Rob be the queen. There was one we did at Waypoint's launch where Danica made me do a lot of voices for some sort of visual novel thing. You can find clips for that somewhere here. I think this is the one where we made Rob. Cool. Well, that is King of the Castle. It's on Steam right now, and will, I think, most likely be something that we do.
We should definitely.
If we don't do it this week, we'll do it next week. Rob is back the day that you listen to this. We'll just have to, and I think I'm off on Friday, so we'll figure out our schedule. But we, one way or the other, sometime soon, we will check this out and throw King Rob into the river. Sorry if that comes up. The vote is unanimous. Ren, you checked out this. I don't even know how to describe it. Like the Olympics. Finally, love video games.
Yeah, they do.
You wrote a piece kind of summarizing where we're at, called The List of Official Olympic Esports Games is extremely weird. I know you're doing some research into this more deeply, but can you please, I know this has been a source of tension over the years of like, hey, doesn't it make sense at some point for the Olympics to pay attention to what's happening in video games? I don't know, after reading your blog, that this is the direction I expected them to go in, but can you please kind of set up what the hell is going on?
Yeah, so effectively, I don't think that like any of this is, I think the actual like games specifically are pretty weird, but none of this is surprising once we get around to it. But the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, is basically like, hey, we're hosting our first ever Olympic Esports Week, which is a live streamed in-person competition across a handful of games that the Olympics is hosting in July of this year, following the Olympic Esports series. Now, you may be thinking,
which is an ongoing series? Is that
no, this is the first one.
Okay, all right.
So you might be thinking to yourself, "Wow, Olympic Esports. Well, I wonder who they partnered with. Could have been League of Legends. Could have been Overwatch 2. Could have been. There's plenty of esports out there, right? Maybe Apex. No, idiot, fool. There are 9 events for the first ever Olympic Esports Week. They are. I'm pulling up the list. Sorry, I just want to make sure I get these right. You know. All right, here we go. Those games are. Sorry, those events are.
Please, games. That's just.
Well, we'll get to games in a moment.
Oh, okay.
Archery, baseball, cycling, sailing, taekwondo,
love it,
tennis, dance,
ooh,
motorsport.
Oh, we love that here.
And chess.
Ah, of course. I mean,
of
only
Chess.
the big brains.
This is how
those
chess
are the-
finally gets to the Olympics.
Yes, Cado, it is.
So what you're telling me is they're just picking up a copy of Wii Sports from Nintendo and they're good to go on all these fronts.
No,
Oh.
sadly. I wish that was that. I wish it was that. Instead, they have partnered with each. So the way that the Olympics works is that the IOC interfaces with different IFs or international federations, right? And international federations are the governing bodies of their respective sports. So for example, there is the World Archery Federation, which is the federation that governs the sport of archery on an international stage. And the WAF and does a lot of the qualifying work, and then that sets people up to then go to the Olympics. And so each sport has a governing federation that the Olympics works with directly. The governing federations are the ones who I believe, according to my research, are the ones who actually picked these games.
Mhm.
These are not what I would call the most accurate simulations. So the games are for motorsport, Gran Turismo.
Huh.
That one makes sense. That's
Yeah.
reasonable.
That the whole thing is it's a racing sim.
It's a racing sim. It has a couple of slight pay to win elements in terms of being able to buy a better car, but for the most part, it's a pretty even playing field. As Rob has told us previously, a lot of the series races for Gran Turismo have a performance cap. And that performance cap, keeps everyone on the same playing field generally. Chess is, of course, sponsored by chess.com, baby. Which has been
chess, baby.
pouring.
Didn't they go through a whole thing recently though? Wasn't
They've
the
been
whole
pouring a lot of
cheating-
money into esports.
No, but I mean, wasn't there a whole cheating scandal in chess? Was that related to
yeah.
chess.com? Am I right? Am I pulling?
I don't. Are you thinking of the vibrator guy?
Yeah, vibrator guy. I think
that's not.
he wasn't one of his. So the
He
vibrating
played
thing
online.
Was, yeah.
Yes, he played online and was previously caught cheating,
Mhm.
and then went to real world tournaments and was then accused of cheating via vibrator.
I know Motherboard did a lot of. I'm just. That's the first thing that I don't think about chess all that often. But then Motherboard was writing a lot of articles about this. If you go back over at motherboarddevice.com, there's a lot of good reporting on this scandal. Anyway, continue. Chess makes sense,
Yeah, chess makes sense. Dance is just dance.
right? My kids love that, and so that. So wait, you're telling me that
Yeah.
when my kids play Just Dance, they are actually on the path to becoming Olympians.
Yes. That's exactly what I'm telling you, Patrick.
Let's go. Proud papa of two prospective Olympians.
All right. Those are the normal ones. Buckle up, motherfuckers. Archery is represent.
Hold on. Did they say which entry of Just Dance? Is it Just Dance 2023? Like what?
I assume it's the most recent
Okay.
one.
All right. Sorry. I'll do my own research. So when I'm telling my daughters
You gotta get
time to
training
I was
on
like, you
the-
know what? This used to be for fun, but now I found out because of my colleague that actually this is how we make our money. Anyway, continue, please.
Archery is represented by Tic Tac Bow,
What?
a game that came out 1 week ago. Patrick.
Oh. All
Tic
right.
Tac Bow is a mobile game created by Refract Technologies, who also make the Axis, which was a 2018 successfully kickstarted motion tracking console, which is also being used to play virtual Taekwondo, which is the Taekwondo simulator that they will be using for the Taekwondo portion of the
This feels grifty.
Yeah, the Taekwondo event being used by a bespoke technology for a console that technically hasn't released yet, which was, by the way, fun little fact here, the CEO of Refract Technologies actually demoed the Axis via virtual Taekwondo at the Taekwondo World Championships in 2020 in a closed-door session that included Thomas Kahn, the head of the IOC. In case you were like,
Interesting.
Wow.
just
Technology
saying,
has come so far, said the head of the IOC.
Coincidences.
Yeah. Also, the same CEO happens to be a committee member in the GEF, the Global Esports Federation, which is the international federation that is looking to govern esports.
I like that. I like that phrasing
note
there.
it.
Looking to govern esports.
Yeah. So that's all pretty cool. But Refract Technologies, so they made this console, and I was like, oh yeah, they made a console. Great. That would make sense that they're gonna have the games played on their console. They also asked one of their smaller studios, 99 Games subsidiary Deep Dive Studios. There are three companies here, to be clear. It's Refract Technologies. Underneath Refract Technologies is Project 99, which is the publisher. And under Project 99 is Deep Dive Studios, which is the actual like studio making the game. This took forever to fucking find out. Deep Dive Studios made Tic Tac Bow, which is it does what it says on the tin, which is that it is a mobile archery game where you fire arrows at a tic-tac-toe board in order to try and win a game of tic-tac-toe. Mechanically, the way it works is if you hit... So imagine like a bullseye, right? A target, right? You're visualizing. Perfect. Say you hit the third ring of that target and it turns the target your color. That means you have successfully claimed that part of the board for your tic-tac-toe run. If someone fires a better shot and say, for example, gets a bullseye, it converts it from your target to theirs.
That's pretty good, actually.
It's actually really good. Yeah, mechanically, it's pretty good. It's really clever. And so, like, if you're hitting bullseyes, your opponent can't take it back from you.
That's pretty good.
But what
Mhm.
are the mechanics of actually shooting? Because it's a mobile game, right?
It's a mobile game. It is you use your thumb to like move a virtual thumbstick to like aim the arrow as it's swaying. And every time, like, because the weapon is the bow is swaying as you're like,
Oh, okay.
and it gets, the faster you shoot, the more accurate it is. There's like a little accuracy meter that empties pretty fast. Now, do you know one way you can make that little accuracy meter fill less quickly?
By practicing over and over and getting better at the game and
doesn't use this
my
idiot
proficiency.
Gear from a loot box, dumbass.
Son of a. So wait, but have they said what is the playing field of, like, what is the gear spec for players?
They haven't. I think they're not going to. Okay, they're not going to, because this is not a one-off occurrence. So this game is built on loot boxes. So every time you win, you get a loot box that has like either a full bow or like parts for a bow in it that you use to upgrade your particular bow over time. Those loot boxes can be opened one of two ways: waiting 30 minutes, watching an ad to open them more quickly, or by giving them gems. Beautiful, beautiful gems, which have a pretty grim transaction rate. And so, that's pay-to-win game number 1 of the Olympic Esports series, which, may I add, I'm pretty sure was made bespoke for this event, because the World Archery Federation and the IOC are listed as like the direct precursors to the creation of Tic-Tac-Bow by Refract Technologies. So they just asked these people to make the most exploitative game possible, or not the most exploitative game possible, but a game that is actively exploitative, because I checked in on another one of these games called Tennis Clash, which is the tennis game, based on the exact same monetization system, and is known for being one of the more predatory mobile games on the market right now. Tennis Clash is pretty dark. If you go to the reviews section of that game, it varies between people being like, yeah, this is pretty okay, and other people being like, I spent $400 trying to become a competitive player, and I did, but I never broke the top 100. And like, the thing about this game is that casual play does not cost you money. Competitive play does. Competitive play is where like the actual like pay to win shit begins to really matter. And it would be one thing to me if the Olympics was like promoting and advertising games with predatory monetization practices. That would suck. That would be awful. But it would be in character. And this, to be clear, still is in character, but it would be like, oh, yeah. That makes sense. Versus what's happening, which is the Olympics creating a competition designed to get whales to spend money on this game by creating like multiple events that you have to qualify for, and then giving the game the legitimacy and prestige that comes from actually having a competition behind it. And so Tennis Clash is the tennis game that uses a very similar monetization system to Tic-Tac-Bow. So similar, in fact, I had to check to make sure that there was not developer overlap because they are quite literally exactly the same in terms of also like progression mechanics, in terms of progressing through series of tournaments where the rewards get higher each time. Next is Virtual Regatta, which is for the sailing fans out there. Virtual Regatta was founded in 2006 by a former professional sailor, like professionals in like sports sailing, who wanted to make sailing games. It was purchased in 2015 by e-gaming company 52 Entertainment. Since then, the game has gotten increasingly pay to win over the years, to the point where it has like burned a lot of its players as it funnels money directly into online gambling, and becomes more and more integrated within that ecosystem.
And that seems like that's the connective tissue between all this stuff, right?
Yes.
Like other than like the weird Konami dollar baseball game, but like,
yeah, like what the fuck's that do?
I don't know, but like I think that's what's I found so interesting about this story, and I'm curious, if you have the time to go deeper on it, is to figure like the fact that the Olympics wants to have video games involved makes sense, like given the sheer scale and popularity. The fact that they might have financial entanglements with it also makes sense, because why wouldn't you want to try and profit while you are propping up this stuff? But the fact that it is this specific type of mobile game in which skill frequently is not necessarily, it is downplayed as an important factor relative to investing money into what is often like cute time wasters, right? Like we've all played different versions of this that like might appeal to us, and you hit your threshold on whether you actually want to participate in the financial aspect of it. But the fact that like broadly speaking, they have chosen these are all the partners is like games that exploit people because they can make up for a lack of skill, or by either the player themselves or the games by design, by spending money. Now granted, in some ways, if you want to be a top tier athlete, you're spending money to get the best. Like there's some analogies here, but like, the Olympics in some way, the best version where you try and put out all the corruption and all the bad stuff is like people being good at a thing, working really hard and showcasing that. And we already have games and organizations that are doing that. And rather than partner with them or model after it, it is instead, screw it, what is just the race to the bottom. And it's gross and hilarious. And frankly, I'd have it no other way. Like we might as well. Yeah,
I mean, the IOC is and always has been wildly corrupt, right? Like that is the Olympics guarantee, is that some motherfucker is going to be getting money in a way that will make you uncomfortable if you look at it too hard.
Well, and the fact that all these games, I think this has been, in earlier, instances where there's been conversations about what is the relationship between the rise in popularity and expertise in playing video games and the Olympics is, I don't think it's a shock where they landed here is, well, actually, we'd like to model it after what we consider existing sports, and the notion of video games, which, to be fair, like frequently involve guns. We don't actually think those are interesting. We want it to be the sports that, we already like model and champion. So it's like, there's also a limited imagination in terms of what are people actually competing in, and how would that interact with, our own personal ethos. And it's like, no, actually, like, I don't know, Just Dance. Like, okay.
Yeah. And it's also the fact that, like, to me, it's in person. The final stream is going to be an in-person competition, which
we're going to watch that. We're going to watch that.
Okay.
I need to see it.
The dark bit to me is the fact that, like, again, it's the prestige being offered and like given to people who are going to be sinking a truly disgusting amount of money.
I've got that's what I want. I want to know, what is the framing here? Like, I am so curious the actual presentation of all of this. And it's also the difficult part of esports, right? It's like people in front of a screen, and even if you can recognize the incredible things they're doing, it's just like tougher television. And like, it's not like making it a mobile game where you're flicking your finger like solves that necessarily. I don't know. It's just truly bizarre.
Virtual Taekwondo is probably the one that'll be the most entertaining to watch.
Cannot wait. That is, yes.
It's used with a motion tracking console, and that one actually functions differently. This one is the most very obviously an advertisement for a specific product, which is the Axis, the thing made by Refract Technologies, because it's not like there are qualifiers for Virtual Taekwondo, if I'm remembering correctly. Instead, they are taking 16 of the best amateur or like up and coming Taekwondo practitioners in the world and having them compete in a 16-person tournament in Virtual Taekwondo, which will be using like the basic idea is that it's no contact sparring. And whatever moves you do physically in the real world get translated to the video game. I bet there will be absolutely no latency there, and it won't be really hard to actually spar with another human being whose hands you are not, whose body you cannot actually
touch. I
bet that'll be really easy and cool. And so that is Olympic Esports Week, which I am looking further into as I try and like figure out the various webs of connections, trying to find the chain of nepotism that leads to
my favorite Kingdom Hearts spinoff.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that as we get closer to stuff like that. The actual stream is probably the summer, right? Like, that is actually when like this would actually be.
Yes,
occurring.
it is in June, late June.
All right,
or late July.
We'll be watching along the way. You know, in Waypoint fashion, we've gone longer than I expected on the first segment of this podcast. So I think I'm going to hold some of the stuff I was going to talk about until Thursday's show. I'll just say very briefly, I started playing Card Jockey, the solitaire horse racing mashup that was a cult hit on 3DS that got remade and released for Apple Arcade. I'll talk more about me being bad at solitaire later this week. And then also, I'm going to watch a little bit more before I can kind of like speak to it, but I've watched most of the first 2 episodes of the recent like 33-part Psychonauts 2 documentary that just dropped all at once.
Wow.
It's all on YouTube. It's totally free. I've watched the first 2 episodes or most of the first 2 episodes, and they're really interesting, but I'll get a little further into that before talking about it later this week. We'll take a break and we'll come back and have a Destiny Minute. We'll be right back. And we're back. It was a quick break if you are a subscriber to Waypoint Plus over at waypointplus.com. If not, who knows what you listen to? I can't even tell you.
No,
the algorithm told you. Hope you enjoyed it.
Makes those decisions for us.
And or you reported it to us and we tried to pass it along to get it tweaked, which sometimes happens. Cado, I'm going to allow us. We flourished.
Yeah.
In the discussion of Destiny last week. I think there's reason to save sort of a more conclusive thoughts on Lightfall to maybe later in the week, because you and I both have gotten to essentially the end of the campaign, which campaigns are not the defining aspect of playing Destiny, but is kind of what you both and I are working towards. I think you and I are both at the final of 9 missions in the Lightfall campaign.
Let's count.
It's something like that, though. Like, it's something between 7, 8, and 9. I don't know. I know that you and I were kind of mixed on it. The one thing I will say that happened immediately after recording the podcast, like that evening, I played a mission that was like, yo, here's just a big open arena and you can use all of the what they call the strand, which
Yeah.
is the new subclass that lets you swing around and has the grappling stuff. And I just got to do that for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It was so fucking cool. Like it was awesome. Like just having a great time.
Oh, that's the one with the Vex, right? The fucking robots coming out. Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. You're right in the zone of
just-
where I was gonna say, like, last time where like I knew where you stopped. It's like, well, get ready. They're about to start giving you strand a lot and then taking it away and then giving it to you a lot again.
And it was great because it was a window into exactly what I wanted more of. But you know, this way they structure it in the campaign is, you know, you're trying to figure out like what's the deal with these green lights and yada yada yada. And basically, like it's just like, hey, you get a sequence where you get to use it, and then your character is quote exhausted, and then it goes away. Before when you finish the campaign, then it opens up as a subclass that you can you know use more frequently. But I remain frustrated, but at least in the like back third of the campaign, you're getting it way more frequently, so that you get to interact with it a lot more and actually understand what each like the move sets are doing, because also what's happening a lot of the time is what's leading to your exhaustion is that your super is filling up all the time. Like you can just use the super over and over and over again. But because of that, you just don't spend a lot of time like, okay, how actually would I want to like what is the swinging actually add to like the combat sequences in the game? And so I've actually had a much better time, even as the story part has gotten away with me, mostly because there's just not much here.
No.
There is just really not a story being told as much as a bunch of missions setting up a sub. I'm sure
There's
that
three
is
stories being half whispered.
Yeah.
Like, well, the loudest one of which is you're struggling to understand how you could control these new strand powers, but you keep losing it. I feel like that's the one through line that I think was easy enough to be like, okay, I get what's going on there. And the other ones are just like, proper noun is getting closer to the proper noun. You got to proper noun that other proper noun before they proper noun it.
We got to defend that proper noun from, oh no, proper noun's coming? Like, oh no, like rush to proper noun. Like, you know, like
Yes.
Vex Cloud or I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's going on where it's just
Metaverse.
CloudNet. So there's a lot of that. You know, I had to spend a little bit of time doing what you had mentioned, which was what do I do when I haven't properly leveled up? Also, the thing that is difficult there is it's like you run out of the sort of, you know, one of the things that you do in Destiny a lot is you'll find a piece of equipment that you like, perhaps aesthetically, or you've done like enough like upgrades into for the mods that you want to keep it. And so you will infuse, like you will take a higher level item gear and basically like transfer its like level properties into it. And then I just ran out of those items. Like fortunately, like I think because of Beyond Light and I think a code that I redeemed years ago, I had access to like 20 of those when I went to the tower. I just like talked to a vendor and they're like, you want a bunch of these? And I was like, yeah, I do.
Yes,
so that I could go do the next activity. So that's where I'm at. And I did a couple of like strikes and things like that in order to get a couple of drops that like got me over the light requirement to go to the next mission. But I don't know that I feel fundamentally different from where I was
to the
at
farm?
before. The farm?
Yeah. Do you remember the farm?
The farm is a Destiny 2 thing, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was in the early game.
One of the cyber surfers keeps asking me, like, have you been to the farm? No. Is that an indication that I should be going? I should go to the farm?
Yes, it is. There's a trailhead there for the seasonal activity. The like after the campaign, kind of like here's what's happening at Earth, and like will be the thing that repeats every week that you do to keep up with the story. And you should do that today because the reset happens tomorrow. Like go check that.
What does that mean?
The reset.
Oh, you mean the
weekly reset on Tuesdays.
So what is that? What does that mean? How does that fit into my
your Destiny playing?
Yeah, like
so,
what am I do? What is the advantage, disadvantage to doing these weeklies?
There's two different things happening essentially with the expansion, right? You have the campaign, which is a set of missions that kind of like have their own story and wrap up like at whatever pace you finish those missions. And then there's the seasonal activity. That's a specific quest that you do a bunch of like steps of this quest, and then eventually you hit a block where it's like, okay, wait for next week. And then when the weekly reset kicks in, you get the next chunk of that quest. And those things have like
I need to trigger that, or else it's just gone.
Well, no, it won't be gone. Like you'll just be a week behind the story, and it might be a little awkward. Like you won't see where the end point is, and it'll just keep going. So like, if you want to like get on that track, it takes less than an hour, I think, to do like the first like, chunk of that before it's like, okay, come back next week. And then next week is tomorrow at 1. It resets, and you get the next chunk of it. And that's its own separate. It's its own parallel story. Actually, it's like about the invasion on Earth and like the people there protecting the city and fighting back against the Witness who's still in the fucking sky over Earth while we're dealing with shit over on Venus. So, that's one of those like worth keeping up with. So we can check in on what that story looks like once we have the reset happened.
All right, I will bug you after this podcast so you can point me in the right direction.
It's low level enough too that like if you have any other gaps, like that'll fill it as far as goes.
Okay. Yeah. That because I think I'm gonna need. I'm up to the final game. I didn't look at what the light level require or recommendation. You can play it whenever you want. Yeah, maybe I'll go do that before I even attempt that final campaign mission. That's probably a good. Like I was like, yeah. Like the 6th time the Cloud Rider says like, you been to the farm? Like when I go there to like get a bounty, should have taken a hint. All right, well we'll check back in probably the next time we chat later this week. We'll probably have finished that camp. I think I'm gonna bring you. You said
you gotta
try the final camp. I'll try the final campaign mission by myself, and then if I am gonna bang my head against it, I will bring in a ringer.
I believe in you. I believe in you. I'm having trouble on the final boss. But
you're playing Legendary.
Yeah, so but we should talk about that final boss encounter some other time because I think it's really, really, really neat until it isn't.
Yeah, like when I Googled it just to like see last night, like we watched The Last of Us, like, oh, maybe I should try that final campaign mission. And like Googled it quickly and there's a lot of people grumbling and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this when I've got more energy. But the energy we're going to bring is now into the mailbag. You can write in yourself to gaming@vice.com with the subject mailbag. That'll point in our direction. I also took some,
that's new.
Was it question bucket? What are letters? What
question.
I forget? Question.
Just question.
Sorry.
Well, we call it the question bucket. I guess we could put the bucket in a bag. Sometimes you need to carry a bucket around in a bag.
That's true. Sometimes you just got to put a bucket in a bag. And also, I asked for some on Twitter that people wrote in, and so I've got a couple then in there. This first one is just a nice one. This comes in narcoleptic in Nebraska. Hey, hello, Waypoint Crew. Oh yeah, look at Red perk up. This is here for you. First, I'd like to say a big thank you to Renata for her explanation of narcolepsy, which led to me getting diagnosed myself.
I only take W's, as you were saying.
I had thought I had ADHD and maybe sleep apnea, but I had a near 1-to-1 exact similar experience to what Ren had told in her intro on her first episode. I'm currently on Wakix, and I guess that's a form of medication, and seeing improvements to my sleepiness and actually getting rest. I thought anyone could take a nap anytime they wanted to at the drop of a hat, but it turns out that's just narcolepsy, baby. I wish I could take naps whenever I want.
No, you don't.
Okay, I know, but you know what I mean by I cannot.
Yeah,
me take nap requires is like. Yeah. I want to be somewhere in the middle. Yeah. My question for you is: have you ever had an innocuous comment by a stranger completely change your life in a significant way? Thanks so much. Love the show. Narcoleptic in Nebraska. An innocuous comment by a stranger completely change your life in a significant way. That is a high barrier.
Yeah.
Innocuous. I've had a lot of like innocuous comments that did change my life, but they were not by strangers, is the thing.
Okay. Well, we can broaden that. Is there something that qualifies from that bucket that is worth sharing?
Probably the first time someone called me pretty.
Okay.
This was like years ago when I was like 15 or 16, like well before I started like HRT or like realized that I was trans. Someone was like, "You're really pretty," and I was like, "Oh, cool." I didn't
expanding
know that.
My worldview.
I didn't know that was an option for me. Hey, I didn't know that was an option for me. I like that. I didn't know it was an option for little me.
That's really cool. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm sure there are examples. I've been on this wretched earth for 38 years. There has to have been something that someone said that had a profound impact in that way. I'm going to think about it. Cado, does anything come immediately to mind?
No, I think I'm in a similar boat of just like, I'm sure it's true. Dig for something, there's something there, but I'm like not having an immediate like.
All right. Well,
someone said a thing and it like changed. I don't know.
This is a deep question. We'll see if anything shakes out of our heads. This one is a little more just. Why do bagels have holes? Wouldn't they be better without them?
No.
Huh.
What?
Interesting.
No.
Wouldn't you just, when you eat a bagel, wouldn't it? This is me. This is not the question. The question's over.
Yeah.
Unsigned,
over.
Anonymous, because they knew they were throwing chaos into the mix.
Oh, what a crock of shit.
Now I understand that the bagel's aesthetic has the circle,
yeah.
But is there ever a scenario where you would want less of the bagel?
Just a flat surface for which to carry more of the cream and cheese.
I'm gonna push back against this. I'm gonna push back against this because think about the way a bagel is cooked.
Okay.
I don't think you can get the specific like kind of cooking that you get with a bagel if it's whole.
So
right,
okay,
like,
but it's in a world where they could.
And
this is purely aesthetic.
No.
You still want the whole.
No. I want the whole. I think it's freaky.
It's weird.
Also, that's an insane.
It's like reverse tryptophobia.
This is to me an insane proposition of like the world in which like boiling doesn't work right. No, I rebuke this. I rebuke this whole fucking concept. The whole is important.
And also, there's is a bagel a sandwich?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Because my question was, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I was not, but I was wondering, is the whole, does it change the territory of food that it lives in a way that would make people feel upset, and thus you would want to retain the whole so that it could stay in its lane, so to speak.
No, bagel is sandwich. When I go order a bagel, I say, can I have a egg and cheese sandwich? Or
and also like you can have a breakfast sandwich, and like that does not exclude the bagel as a repository for the various.
I make my own
items.
Egg and cheese sandwich. It's more of a sandwich than it is a breakfast sandwich because I go up. They don't have it on the menu. I just have to order a everything bagel with cream cheese, tomato, onion, and roast beef.
Hey, bud, can you give me a second pass at that? Sorry,
everything bagel.
Okay, delicious.
Cream cheese.
Good on its own.
Tomato.
Fuck off.
Onions.
Okay.
Roast beef.
Ah.
What's the wrong? Well, hold on. I can understand the roast beef part. What's wrong with the tomato?
I don't think that tomato and cream cheese go together.
Yeah, they do. Don't people put tomato on fucking Yeah, they do.
No.
You didn't finish that thought, Cado. You just said
because then I realized the thought was wrong. The thought was wrong. People don't put tomato on the thing that I was thinking of, which was lox. So you don't put tomato on a bagel all the way. But it could. You could. It'd be good, I think. I like tomatoes.
You just described a wet ass sandwich.
It is a wet ass sandwich.
It's all wet. Roast beef.
Well,
the
tomatoes aren't super wet. They're not like the sopping wet tomatoes.
Damn, who fucked up your tomatoes then? Because if you're eating a dry tomato, no, you don't get to look at
dry.
You
but
don't
it
get to
isn't
look at me and be like, a tomato isn't wet.
It isn't leaky.
That is one of the wettest. No.
Yeah, there's a difference between soggy and like dripping. Like you bite into a tomato, the juices be flowing.
The juices be flowing.
Gross.
You slice a tomato and if you're like doing it on like a cutting board.
Depends on how big the pockets are of the juice in there. You got different varieties of tomatoes. Some tomatoes are really wet, and some tomatoes are only kind of wet.
When I go to the grocery store, that's how they categorize them.
This is also right.
I think it is
worth
dry tomatoes
noting.
and the wet ass tomatoes.
My favorite song from a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I will say, Cado, in your defense, it is worth noting that like tomatoes are one of like my biggest sensory foods.
Okay,
Like I simply cannot. A cherry tomato is one of the most repugnant things on the planet.
Repugnant. Wow.
Yes.
I love
The texture of a cherry tomato makes me physically ill.
You bite it and it gets a little pop of like a gusher, but vegetable.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's a healthy gusher. That's a great way of putting it.
Oh no!
All right, we're gonna move away from this.
We're disturbing,
Ren shrinks into not a corn cob, be more of a tomato cob, I suppose. Josh in New Orleans. Hello, Pointers. After listening to Waypoint Radio 545, I had to tell the story of my greatest gaming victory. Last March, New Orleans hosted the NCAA Men's Final Four, and the weekend prior to the games, the NCAA/corporate overlords had a free Big Expo at the city's convention center. The usual free swag was handed out, but one booth in particular caught my eye, Bleacher Report Gaming. Sporting numerous PS5s hidden behind arcade cabinets, 2 controllers connected, all playing the same game and ready for a tournament. The contest chosen to determine the champion. Why? None other than Windjammers 2, of course. The prize, a PS5. Yeah, I know, an extremely odd choice. The prize, a PS5 controller. Do I have a PS5? No, but I was not going to let that stop me. Being one of 5 people in the world that had played that game on Game Pass, I thought I had a pretty good shot, and even better odds when I saw most of my competition was 12 and under. Woo! The first kid I faced gave his best Tiny Tim impression as soon as we started. Quote, "My PS5 controller at home is broken, so I really hope I win."
Oh no!
I proceeded to sweep him in straight sets. PS5s were impossible to get at that time. If that kid really had one, he was rich, and his parents can get another controller whenever. I lost my first set in the championship round, but still managed to crush the competition. Prepubescent children crying as they ran from the arena. My wife was incredibly embarrassed on my behalf and is still mortified every time she tells the story. But I'm still proud as hell of my accomplishment. I most definitely have used the $70 more than once via Bluetooth. Photos attached to paint a picture of my glory. My kids featuring as well. I don't have the photo here at the moment. I will find it a little bit later. But love the show so much that I recently subscribed to Waypoint Plus, FC, especially the NCAA, GH, Josh in New Orleans. That's tremendous. That's on another level from me crushing some kids to get my kid a stuffed animal from the local carnival.
I would go so far as to enter the tournament and be like, I'm definitely going to sweep this kid. But when that first guy puts on the sob story, I'm out. I'm sorry. I don't know if that kid's lying or not. It worked. Surprise, it worked on me. Enjoy your win, friend.
All right, next question comes in. Why doesn't it seem like you folks like Star Trek? What's the deal with that?
Who said that?
Does anyone?
Hey, yeah,
Anonymous.
who told you that?
These some of these came in from the Twitter or the Google Doc ask, and people don't sign their names as much as when they write something about writing an email. People always sign their name.
Mm-hmm.
Putting it in a form, couldn't be bothered. I think there's more of a chaotic energy to the form than sending a formal email. I personally just didn't. Star Trek was not part of like me growing up. Like it just was not a show that I watched for any particular reason, and so thus like so much of modern Star Trek is essentially like building off a nostalgia for the series. I know Star Trek Discovery was like a pretty decent on ramp if you wanted to get into it, but like I don't need another show. And I heard that was like, it's all right if you like Star Trek. And I said, well, I don't dislike Star Trek. I just don't have any affinity for it.
You should check out Strange New Worlds.
I've heard that's fantastic.
It's actually a fucking. I'm a little bit more. So I had it feels like Star Trek the next generation was on my TV at home like all the time for some reason. Like after school, after Toonami ended, that's what would be on. I never I don't remember actually sitting down and watching full episodes as a kid because I would always lose interest at a certain point. But I did.
A lot of talking in this show.
I did.
Boring.
I sat in front of it long enough that my parents got the impression that I liked it, and for one of my birthdays, got me the Star Trek movie First Contact, which was a good movie. I actually enjoyed that movie. That's a great one. That's the one where Picard gets turned into a
the
Borg.
Borgs, right?
Yeah, the Borg, and fucking they're going back in time to the first time aliens made contact with Earth, and it's a good movie. I like that one. But generally I didn't like super think of myself as like a Trekkie or a Star Trek fan in that way. Recently watched Strange New Worlds and like fucking loved it. Like that shit.
I've heard nothing but good. I've heard that's the most Star Trek a Star Trek show has been
in a while, right? Yeah,
in like the last 7 years, or like Discovery, Picard. I know I've heard the animated show is actually like pretty decent. But I've heard Picard is complete garbage. Strange New Worlds.
Everyone that I know that's like Star Trek, like absolutely abhors Picard.
Yes. Ren, any relationship with Star Trek?
So
plus or minus?
I had a Star Trek father and a Star Wars aunt.
Whoa.
Oh wow!
Yeah, my aunt named her daughter Jedi. Like that's the energy we're kind of crafting in the space.
Because that was what I was going to ask. Was like, it's one thing to like fall in a camp of those two, but then how strong were the feelings in that camp enough to have judgment about the other camp?
Not a ton. My aunt didn't like talk shit on Star Trek, but like again, she liked Star Wars enough to name her daughter Jedi, but not enough to like watch the Clone Wars.
Right. Well, that's the crazy thing that exists, right? Is like people whose fandom only revolves around the original trilogy and like loving that deeply, but not engaging with any of the like tertiary material.
Yes, that was my aunt. That was my aunt very much. But yeah, my dad's big into Star Trek, and so like it would be on like we had like VHSs of it. But for the most part, I grew up in like what I believe this is true. I grew up in the Star Trek Dark Ages.
That makes sense. Like Star Trek's like there are sort of two periods of Star Trek resurgence. Like one about a little over 10 years ago, like the J.J. Abrams like Star Trek film, and the couple that came after that, and then it overlaps a little bit with the new TV shows from the last 5 years. But yes, I think you're right. There's a period where there just really wasn't. There's a couple like bad movies, and I think that was about it. That was my youth. I remember going to the bad Star Trek movie with my dad when I was like a teenager, or like a very early teenager in like 2012, 2013. I think that's the one with who's in that movie? We're getting like the bad Nemesis, right? That's the last 2002 Star Trek Nemesis. Is I think
Into Darkness. Was the one I saw with my dad.
This is the Abrams one. So your description, that's very funny. Now that is a bad movie. I agree, but is a different quote unquote dark period for Star Trek. Than what is for folks who be older than you would be this like Nemesis being the last like Star Trek film in theaters is because that is considered to be an all-time piece of shit movie.
Yeah, but like my childhood happens between those two zones. Right. Like Nemesis comes out, and then in 2002, when I'm a little infant, got no fucking thoughts in my head. And then Star Trek, the 2009 J.J. Abrams film, comes out, and like I'm already 9, you know? I've got Pokemon to play. I can't think about that guy, you know? I can't think about fully automated space communism. I don't have time for that. I have to memorize which one Charizard is.
Which one Charizard?
Yeah.
Still working on that one. But you know,
hey, which one Charizard is?
The soundtrack to that 2009 Abrams Star Trek.
I understand.
We didn't do the lot.
I was gonna say I understand why Ren's confused. In Ren's era of Charizard, there's actually like 4 different types of Charizard. There used to just be one Charizard, but now there's 2 different Mega Evolutions, a bunch of other bullshit. The Gigantamax Charizard.
Yeah.
They got fucking giant Charizards out here.
Cado, I'm just my fields are what's the word? Abundant? No.
Abundant with
Who's to say?
Charizard.
Yeah.
Too many Charizard.
But yeah, the soundtrack for that movie slaps. It's a Michael Giacchino joint.
Hey.
That's the closest we're getting to
To
this
our
being the Lost
minute,
podcast.
yeah.
Lost. Look, he just has a thing with strings that I listen to Giacchino soundtracks all the time. Like, one of my favorite modern composers. And if you listen to enough composers work across, like, shit, why am I blanking? Dune. Who was the guy who did the Dune soundtrack?
That wasn't Zimmer, right?
Yes, no, it is. Hans Zimmer.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. So
there you
Hans
go.
Zimmer,
Yeah.
horns, right? Like, there is like there's stuff that like, and Giacchino has a thing with strings that like Lost soundtrack, Star Trek, like I can hear it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh motherfucker, you're doing it again.
You're doing
like
your
I can
thing.
hear it.
You're doing your thing.
You're doing your thing, and it's good. I like your thing though, so it's all right.
Yeah.
Maybe we will go out on this one. This comes in from Andrew from Edinburgh. Way pointers. WHEY pointers. What's your feelings on movement speed in video games? Typically, I'm a sprint everywhere person, but I've been playing through Yakuza Like a Dragon, and for some reason, that game makes me want to walk everywhere, and vibe in the city spaces more than any other game. I'd rather stroll about the city rather than sprint to the next location or even fast travel. Thanks for all the work you do, FCGH. Ren, what is your preferred mode of travel when you're kind of exploring a game space, especially one that has, a big old location?
I mean, I think it depends on like because like in Dragon's Dogma, I'll stroll. I'll stroll in a Dragon's Dogma. I'll chill. What was in Season? I walked places in Season. I clicked the fuck a walk button and was like, well, it's gonna take me 15 minutes to walk there if I don't use this bike, but I think that would be nice. So yeah, I'm a little roleplay freak. I'll do whatever feels right for the character. Unless the game is one of those games where they didn't put in a walk animation, and so they just kind of like a slightly slower run. And those are always the toughest for me, where it's like, damn, if you're jogging 2 miles an hour, that is too much work for you for no reward. Please stop. It looks bad. But yeah, I will RP walk like a dork.
Yeah, like as evidenced so many times on this podcast, I'm in the complete opposite direction, which is like, you give me fast travel, I'm going to use your fast travel. If you don't put fast travel in, then hopefully getting from point A to point B is enjoyable. Some games there are, right? Like I remember the game that most acutely come to mind is the Insomniac Spider-Man game, in which just swinging around was so much fun. I think I only engaged in fast travel at the end, like post story, where I was just kind of sweeping up and finishing a couple of side objectives that kept me in the world for a little bit longer. I think for me, because I don't really role play all that much in the games that I play, it's the characters doing the characters things, and if that is lacking, I'm not necessarily going to try and make up for it through my own play. But I think part of like why I'm so obsessed with games like platformers and things like that is because I need the actual act of movement to be interesting for me to want to engage with it for long periods of time. And when that doesn't occur, like for example in Cyberpunk 2077, which I played through on stream back in November and December, like the driving is abhorrent in that game. It is so bad. It does not feel good at all. And so it undercuts what is one of the strengths of the game, which is like a pretty cool looking city to kind of like just look at. I don't think it's that fun to explore, but I can definitely understand why someone would want to go from point A to point B and look at that city on the way to accomplishing a task or getting to a mission. But it just sucks to control, like keyboard and mouse, bad, gamepad, bad. Like it just feels bad. And so I fast traveled all the time in that game because the last thing I wanted to do was get in a car and drive around. And so I think that is my own personal like preferences getting in the way of being able to engage with the game on that level. So, I mean, broadly speaking, I fast travel because I'm just trying to get through a thing. But if it has interesting movement and exploration mechanics, I will find myself spending time with it as a result. Cado, any thoughts?
I fall somewhere in between y'all, where like I do tend to like in a lot of things want to just kind of move things along, but I will still eschew like I didn't use the fast travel in Cyberpunk 2077 when I played it very much at all, because I wanted to ride around on Jackie's motorcycle as much as possible. And remember, sure. Because his motorcycle rocks and Jackie rocks, and you're just like, I want to like live in this like character, like driving
the good part of the game before everything else happens.
driving this motorcycle around the city. But I'm less likely to on foot usually do the slow walk. I'm usually just trying to get to the thing as quickly as possible. So, like a little mix here between the both of y'all.
Well, and I think like Yakuza is an interesting example because that is a game about density, right? So I think it's Cyberpunk isn't, you know what I mean? Like there are dense areas, but like the city isn't completely populated. You're not like rewarded for like poking around every corner. Whereas in Yakuza, like that is kind of the point, is like there are just a bajillion distractions that can be rewarding in their own ways, whether it's a mini game or some side quests. Like, those are just kind of like different world building approaches that I think then funnel into how and why you choose to explore the space. So, please feel free to keep writing in questions to gaming@vice.com. Is that our 15-minute timer? Kind of look at me sliding into home right as the timer goes off. Sick. Don't cut that off. That is a skilled host getting us to the outro.
Wow, it's one of Cado's alarms for once in this fucking podcast instead of one of mine that go off every goddamn episode. Sorry about that. I'll never change them.
I've got lots of alarms. I have the watch on my wrist though, and so when mine go off, I just get the vibration. So that's the solution I have to the audio problem. That's a wrap on today's episode of Waypoint Radio. If you want more from Waypoint, you can follow us on Twitter @Waypoint. Although Twitter appeared to be non-functional while we were
borked.
Is it fixed? Because
I don't know.
I use
I don't think it is.
I use a variation of TweetDeck called Tweetin. I should show it to you, Cado. It's excellent. It's built on top of TweetDeck, and you can still use
the
legacy.
old TweetDeck.
Yeah. Are you using new shitty TweetDeck?
No, I'm not. I'm still on the old TweetDeck.
Okay.
The button's there. It's like, try a new TweetDeck preview. I'm never fucking clicking that thing.
I'll show you Tweetin.
From my cold, dead hands.
I know. Well, part of the reason I like Tweetin is because it's a separate software application as opposed to a window in a browser. So, anyway, on Facebook and YouTube at Waypoint Vice. This podcast, as we mentioned earlier, is brought to you ad-free if you're a subscriber over at waypointplus.com. This week, we are waiting for Rob to come back from a little mini vacation after all the construction happening in his place. So our full schedule needs to kind of be hammered out tomorrow, but we do know that we'll be watching The Lighthouse as part of concluding this arc of My Turn. So there'll be by the time you listen to this, we'll be recording it, but there will be, if you go to the same link that we used to get the questions for the today for the mailbag, that is the one you can always kind of drop things in for upcoming segments, and I will make note of that before I purge kind of the answers from that. So know that for the future, and then we'll be getting a new arc of My Turn off of The Lighthouse. Otherwise, this week, it looks like we're going to no commitments until we talk to Rob, but we will try and play the game that Cado was talking about. What was that called again?
King of the Castle.
I finished out Metroid Prime. I finished Daddy's Day Off, came to another conclusion. We saw the credits on Metroid Prime on Friday. So that particular series will take a break until, a kind of game comes along that seems to make sense. I did think about playing Minish Cap. I've never not played the handheld Zelda games. And that is, someone said you could do that in 2 streams. And I was like, go from 9 streams to 3 to 2. That is
amazing.
The heights of efficiency. So look forward to that and other things happening this week. There'll be a schedule that gets posted soon enough. Certainly by the time you listen to this, that'll have the full complement of things happening at Waypoint. This week, our theme music is by Bo N. The track is Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. You can learn more at waypoint.zone/Bo N. You can follow me at Patrick Klepek. Ren, where can people follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Ren or Raven.
Cado.
At _Cado_appears.
That's us calling time on this Monday. We'll talk to you again later this week. Until then, fuck capitalism. Go home.